Hello, and welcome to Did It Really Happen? The show where we bring you the most bone-chilling stories of paranormal activities and communication from beyond the grave. I'm your host, Waris Sandhu, and today our first story comes from Gracie James, a student at the University of North Texas. Let's take a look at what she experienced in her own home.
Hi everyone! So this is my ghost story, and it begins 2 years ago, I think, in my first apartment. And what was happening was I was getting full-on handprints on my bathroom mirror. This was only happening in my bathroom. Me and my roommate had our own bathrooms, and it's only happening to just me. So I thought it was me at first, being dumb and not realizing I was full-on palming the mirror. But like this was happening every day, like in the morning. There was always a new one. So I was like, I don't think that's the case. But it finally solidified for me when I had a friend stay the night, and when they went to the bathroom in the middle of the night, they were like washing their hands and stuff, and when they looked up, there was a brand new, fresh, wet handprint on the mirror, and it wasn't theirs because their hands are way bigger than the handprints I was getting. So I was like, okay, cool, this is a ghost. And so I told my mom about it the next day, and she was actually going to go see a bruja later that week, which is basically a witch. And so I was like, okay, cool, like, gonna get some answers and stuff. And then later, I put on some music, and I just told it to, like, shuffle or whatever. And I put on Black Magic Woman, and I was like, okay, this is a little too specific for my situation, but, like, whatever. And as I was leaving my room, it got to the lyric that said, "Don't turn your back on me." And I was like, okay, I don't like this. This is really creepy. I'm now eagerly awaiting for what the bruja has to say. And so the bruja told me I had 2 female spirits in my house. And what I had to do was I had to light 2 yellow prayer candles and sandalwood incense. And I had to keep them lit until they were burnt out and stuff. And after I did that, they were gone. So yeah, that was my ghost story.
What a truly chilling story. Personally, I am convinced that this could very well be a paranormal experience. However, I am no expert on the matter and will require further consultation. I would now like to welcome our guest, internationally known professional of the paranormal, Jess Moreland. Jess, it is an absolute pleasure to have you on our show. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
So for our new viewers at home, could you please describe your professional and educational experience in the paranormal?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I'm planning on telling my story that catalyzed my career a little bit later in the show, so I'll go ahead and save that. But after that experience, I became enthralled with paranormal activity. I had to know what had happened to me, why it had happened to me, and who had done it. So I began traveling the world, collecting people's stories, helping them figure out what had happened to them, helping them look for solutions, kind of like I got in mine, and it changed my life, absolutely. And one book later, and here I am.
Of course, so let's get right into it. What are your initial thoughts on Gracie's story?
I will have to say with a strong sense of certainty that this is a real story.
Well, there you have it. So what would you say in the specifics about the story? So I could tell that from right off the bat that it was a young spirit just because of the small hands. Would you agree with me?
Yeah, absolutely. I think she also said that they were female. That could also play a little bit of a part into it. Some spirits also, as time passes, they lose their sense of, I guess, tied to our earth, and they begin to dwindle, and they do kind of get smaller. But there is a very high chance that it could be a child. Just by the sound of her story, they didn't make any physical contact with her personally. They could have just been trying to play a game, trying to let her know, hey, I'm here, this is my home, welcome.
Of course. You said that you are confident that it's a spirit. Would you say that, or how would you explain that this is such a new building? It's a university apartment, yet there still seems to be a spirit in there. Is that possible?
Yeah, of course. So a lot of the time, spirits will stay where they know, stay where their home is. Even after the home has been destroyed, if the land is still there, that's where they will continue to reside. And it seems that that's the case here, that a child or the female spirit used to live in the property that Gracie's apartment was built upon.
So you said that you have some personal experience with similar stories. Would you say that you have consulted similar sort of brujas in your own time?
Absolutely. So I actually do know a girl in Guatemala that went through something very similar to this, except the handprints were on her body, and it was very obvious that the spirits were trying to use her as a vessel, trying to possess her. So we actually did visit a couple brujas, some mediums, trying to figure out what we can do to get this spirit out of her home, out of her presence. And we did it, kind of similar to Gracie's story with the brujas ritual to get rid of the spirits. We used a very similar ritual to that.
Yes, so would you say that the spirit in Gracie's home had any sort of ill intent towards her, or a chance of harming her?
I think it may be a little bit too soon to tell, but just based off the story, absolutely not. The fact that they were just touching the mirrors, and they weren't only doing it to her. It seemed they just wanted to let someone know that I'm here, I live here, but no threat to leave or anything like that.
That sounds completely reasonable. So I personally have actually never had a paranormal experience. Is there any way to instigate this sort of a supernatural instance for our viewers at home?
Yeah, absolutely. Spirits, if they want to get in contact with you, will do so. So there are a couple different ways you can do it. The way I suggest, and it may sound a little bit silly, but you can buy a Ouija board absolutely anywhere. And if you are open to communicating with spirits, and if they can get a good sense that you aren't there to harm them in any way, they will use absolutely whatever they can to get in contact with you, kind of like we saw with Gracie's story.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't see any reason why a spirit couldn't use a Ouija board if they can interact with mirrors or with furniture or anything like that. So I guess there you have it, folks. It is a real unalive ghost.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
All right, so moving on, let's talk about, since you seem to be such a clear expert, the primary story of the night, which you have actually brought for us, something truly horrifying, truly shocking, thrilling, a story of great paranoia that will make you question the walls that surround you and fear the shadows that they cast, right, Jess?
Absolutely. So as an introduction, as I stated before, this is a paranormal experience that I experienced personally, and it's the event that actually catalyzed my career of the paranormal.
Well, I can hardly wait.
When I was a teenager, I actually took a babysitting job at a rich family's house, and the place was massive. It felt like one of those old haunted houses you went to on Halloween. You know, cobwebs in the corners, long dark hallways. You know, you walk through the corridors and you kind of hear whispers. But even more than that, it was decorated with dozens upon dozens of porcelain statues, and they were all pretty much across every hallway, every room, and they were terrifying.
So would you say they're like these life-size statues, or were they like sort of miniatures?
They definitely could have been the size of a 10-year-old child, about 4 feet. Some of them stood about 5 feet as well, and I'm 5'5", so that's pretty much life-size to me. But absolutely terrifying.
Were they painted, colored, or were they just pure white, like most statues?
Most of them were pure white, but there was one that was not, and I will let you know about that one.
Oh boy.
So as soon as the parents started to leave their home and leave me with their child, I put the kid to bed, and let me say the kid was never the issue. Darling child. But after he had fallen asleep, things started to get very strange. I was waiting in the living room for the parents to return home, and I started to pay a little bit more attention to these porcelain statues everywhere, and I saw one that looked a lot different than the others. It looked like a clown, and as I stated before, was not white like the others. It was actually in full color, red and white makeup. It was absolutely terrible. So after a while of looking at this menacing looking statue, I called the parents to see if there was any way I could move the statue, turn it away from me, and thank God I did, because the parents seemed utterly confused. They told me blankly on the phone that they didn't have a porcelain statue that looked like a clown. And it took me a second to realize it, but eventually it clicked that that wasn't a statue. What was staring at me the entire night wasn't what I thought it was. So I immediately hung up the phone, darted upstairs, grabbed their child, ran to the neighbor's house for safety, and called the police. And when the police arrived on the scene, strange thing was that the clown statue had disappeared.
Oh, wow.
Absolutely gone. And I'd never been more confused and creeped out in my entire life.
That sounds horrifying. This clown statue, you'd say, this entire experience overall, was there any other stuff like strange going on that night?
Not necessarily, and that's why this entire experience was so chilling to me. There were some noises in the hallways, little creaks in the floor, but other than that, nothing abnormal to a giant mansion like I was in.
Yeah, wow. It sounds like generally just a creepy vibe, but that especially seems to stand out. So was there any other like sort of trace when the clown had disappeared of anything?
Not that I could tell. Of course, by the time we had arrived back to the house, I was traumatized. I couldn't go back in, but the police said they didn't find any forced way of entry, but I don't know. It was very interesting.
Yeah, that sounds, I would say that's abnormal, even paranormal. I'm calling it right now that this has to be a ghost. There's like no other explanation for it. It is like the basis of your career.
Yeah, well, I think that's for the audience to decide, Waris.
Well, of course, of course. You at home know what time it is. Let's see what the audience has to say about the story. You all, did it really happen? Well, looking at the results, we can clearly see that the audience seems to agree that this, for the most part, was a supernatural experience. So, Jess, what is the truth? Did it really happen?
No. What I experienced was not at all a paranormal experience.
I don't believe it. So then what actually happened that night?
It's actually quite simple. The clown was merely a short, deranged man who the police found a few weeks later when he tried to break into another family's home pretending to be a clown statue again. But he was just a man and a living one. So.
So this clown statue, that honestly sounds more terrifying than a spirit to me.
Absolutely. I think God every day that that man instilled fear upon me and had me run, because who knows what would have happened if the man decided to not be a statue.
Yeah, you were one decision away from instant danger if you had not called the parents and instead just turned it around and taken initiative.
Absolutely.
Who knows what would have happened?
Might not even be here today.
Yeah, technically he also inspired you to be here today, to be the internationally known person that you are now.
That's the crazy part.
I wonder if he knows that you're here now, wherever he is.
Oh, well, I hope he doesn't know where I am at all.
So, what else was there? Would you say that there is a possibility of clown spirits, like legitimate clown spirits, actually going out there and existing?
I definitely think there's a possibility of that. I can't say I've ever encountered them myself, but spirits have a very interesting sense of humor, kind of like we saw in Gracie's story. They'll just let you know that they're there. They might mess with you a little bit, but other than that, I can't say I've ever come across a clown spirit, and thank God for it, because it might traumatize me, and I don't know, who knows?
Yeah, it sounds almost cliche to see like so many like terrifying depictions of clown spirits and demons, like of course the classic Pennywise from the Stephen King novel.
Don't get me on that. Don't get me started.
So I would say that maybe there is some clown spirits out there, just of some poor souls who died doing their jobs. So there you have it, folks. Sometimes the truth is often scarier than fiction. Thank you for watching, and see you next time on Did It Really Happen? that was a little shorter than the second one.
I do too.
How long is that?